Florida as well, you have no income tax. You have said that you believe other states should follow Florida's lead on that. If you were president, would you eliminate the federal income tax?
I mean, can I stop dreaming? I mean, like, wouldn't you like to eliminate the IRS and have, what I would want is, I think I would eliminate the IRS, have a single rate, and just do like a flat tax. I think that would be the ideal tax system to be able to do, take away the distortions. And what happens is, Florida's a good example of this. We have low tax and we cut taxes, and yet we attract more investment and our economic base expands. So I run these big budget surpluses where we're paying down debt by lowering rates. I think you look at some of the other states that are high tax states, they tax, they cause businesses to flee and individuals to flee, then they go back to the well and they tax more, and it's like a vicious cycle. So low rates, broad base, ultimately is the best and most conducive to economic growth.
But you would push to eliminate the federal income tax.
I want to eliminate the IRS, and I would like a flat, one single rate, flat tax. Is obviously, I would only do it if it was lower taxes for everybody, but that is the ideal tax system.
Hey guys, it's Talks with Kenny here today, and DeSantis has been accused of airlifting talking points from Vivek Ramaswamy. Now, flat tax, dismantling the IRS, I think it's been a prominent talking point in the conservative political philosophy. Flat tax has always been a thing, so I'm not sure necessarily that Ron took those talking points from Vivek, because flat tax is something commonly talked about, especially as an economic platform for the Republican Party. That's like our ideal economic model for governance, right? But let's hear some of the criticism that DeSantis got recently from his town hall with CNN. Who's going to tell Ron DeSantis that his staff lifted this important talking point from Vivek Ramaswamy? Maybe he's taking the fact, because I remember Ron did the same thing with the Department of Education when Vivek mentioned the Department of Education. The advantage that Ron DeSantis had is that he's actually in politics and he's actually governing a state. So he's just using his example, right, from like, I live in Florida, no state tax, thank God, right? And he talks about the common results of what happens when you lower taxes. You actually get more tax revenue, and you can just look at it yourself. You can do the research yourself. Whenever government, every administration that raises taxes, actually you can just compare administrations between Democrats and Republican administrations. Republican administrations tend to have more tax revenue than Democrat administrations, right? And if you look, the only Democrat that had as much tax revenues as a previous Republican administration is JFK. And what JFK believed, low taxes. Right, and then there's the Lavender curve, which I made a video about it in my Inconvenience Truth series about progressive tax, is how it incentivizes people not to work as hard. It incentivizes people to leave your state, New York, California. This is why in the end, there's a point of diminishing returns. That's what the Lavender curve acknowledges is. If you get zero taxes, everyone's going to work to their full capacity. If you do 100% tax rate, no one's going to work at all. So you realize somewhere in the middle, there's a point of diminishing returns. And for many people, I think the agreed upon is debatable what the degree is, right? For us, it's the closer you are to zero, the better we are economically. The more companies will feel more willing to contribute to the tax system. But, I digress. I just gave you some historical anecdotes comparing the Ronald Reagan administration, Carter. Like, there's different data points you can pull to validate the fact that flat tax is actually a good thing for government and for everybody. It's a win-win situation. I don't understand how people can be so against it. But the whole point is, did Ron DeSantis steal Vivek's talking points? Let's take a look at some two clips I got for you guys, and then we'll get into it after the clips. Let's take a look.
What does it mean to be an American? It means we believe in a radical dream that our founding fathers had. A radical dream that I have as a citizen. That the people who we elect to run the government ought to be the ones who actually run the government. Not this managerial, bureaucratic, deep state that runs the show today. That is why I've said that as your next president, I will not promise you to reform those agencies. That is a false promise. When you have an agency that should not exist, an agency that has become so corrupt that it has abandoned the rule of law, from the U.S. Department of Education to the FBI, to the IRS, to the ATF, to the CDC. We will not just reform them, we will shut them down.
I note that you said that you are for a, quote, very high inheritance tax. Are you?
In the context of a very low flat tax, if we could get a single-digit flat tax rate across the country, and that was something that we were actually able to achieve, and make the changes to the gaming that people use to find their way around the inheritance tax now, which is also something I talk about extensively in there, that would be a great state of affairs. We are not going to get there, and I believe in prioritization for how you set the goals of a presidency. There's no way we're going to get that type of tax reform done until we have economic growth in this country. But yes, if we could have a low single-digit flat tax for everybody and recollect it on the back end by ending the gaming on the inheritance tax, we absolutely would. I would eliminate the step-up in basis upon death.
As you see from the last point, July 2023, he was talking about dismantling the IRS. You know, and then the flat tax when he was going on talking on a radio show. I forgot the show's name. I link all the sources that I get these videos from. And it seemed like, you know, hey, Ron, I don't know. It's hard for me to say that Ron stole Vivek's talking points. He might have. Maybe he's just like, oh, I should bring more attention to this. And I can use the fact that I did this in Florida or Florida's already like this as a way of validating this talking point. You know, that's kind of the tough part. But in a way, I don't think it's a bad thing, and necessarily a bad thing that Ron is being influenced by what Vivek is doing. I think that's actually a win for Vivek, right? They say good artist imitation is the ultimate form of flattery. So I think having that more as a general Republican platform is a good thing. And also in the last clip, the reason why I showed you the last clip of Vivek talking about how it's not practical, you have to prioritize, is the fact that it's not I don't know how, I don't know. I think it's going to be a really hard thing to dismantle the IRS, but I think it's possible if you have the right president in place. So, hey, more candidates that's saying the same thing, the better for us, right? So I don't understand why people are getting so, I guess, pigeonholed or so like, oh no, this is Vivek's talking points. Hey, if it's a good policy, we should adopt it, right? So, hey, you know, I digress. So I want to just give a minute into, like, because we're going to hear some conversations surrounding the flat tax. But I honestly believe that the flat tax, that concept has been around for a while. So it's hard to really say that, oh, you're stealing it from Vivek. And it's going to be a hard argument to make, especially that a lot of conservatives like the concept. So, you know, I digress. Let's listen in for a minute and I'll end off the video.
Who would be against flat taxes?
Rich people.
I thought poor people would be against flat tax.
Why?
It's crazy, right? That you would think that.
I would, because
Wait,
if you're taxing everyone at 15%, 17%,
No.
20%,
Well, but I mean, in theory,
the rich are getting 40%. The poor are paying, nothing, 10%.
well, you just don't tax them if they make a certain amount or less.
Okay,
If they're
teach
below
me.
the poverty line, you just don't tax them. Period.
By the way, I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea. If you make below a certain
That's better
number,
than a welfare
Yeah.
system.
By the way, here's the thing. Watch
Okay.
this. Watch. This just took us to a completely different place. Which would you rather have? You guys ready? Which would you rather have? Honestly, I'm asking this to everybody. Kai, listen to this. What she just said, we're in a different free. We just made a right turn.
Yeah.
We're gonna
U-turn, we're going this way
watch
now.
this.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Would you rather have a minimum wage, or if you make less than 40 grand a year, you don't pay any taxes?
Hello.
Which would you take?
There's no tax.
Forget the minimum wage.
Are you seriously a minimum wager?
I'm not a minimum wager.
Thank
I'm
God.
Tell him, what shirt was he wearing last week?
I love minimum wage.
$15. Bring it, like.
Fight
Oh,
for 15.
the love of
The
people.
fight for
Okay.
15.
All right. Here's a little lesson.
I was muted. So many people, when they talk about minimum wage is the worst. I don't know. It's one of the worst economic policies that I hear a lot of people push, especially that we're in tougher economic times. So people feel more emotional about justifying it, especially here in Florida. I don't know many people know what happened in Florida, but when Ron won, Florida's residents, even though we voted Republican, many of us voted to add in a gradual uptick towards a minimum wage of $15 an hour here in the state of Florida. Now, I believe this is an emotional circumstance. And I'm like, yo, today I think we're going to go to $13 an hour. That's the new floor for minimum wage here in Florida. So in my view, I'm like, yo, this is going to take away hours from workers. This is going to pretty much raise the bar for people to get employment. And this is why you tend to have higher unemployment in these states that pushes minimum wage, or people get the minimum wage, but they don't have the hours to really take full advantage of that, because you're artificially creating more cost towards businesses without any more gain from the business, right? If there was a correlation like, hey, the more you raise wages, the more profits you get, hey, that's economically sound. But that's not usually the case. If you're a burger flipper, there's only a certain amount of money the business is making. Thomas, let me talk. There's only a certain amount of money a business can make off of you flipping burgers. And if the government artificially rose your wage to $65 an hour, the job's like, yo, I might as well replace this whole ish with robots, because this is going to be too expensive to have you in the store to do burgers. You'll be a net negative on my business. And that's the reality of economics. That's the reality of being an employee and an employer. An employer has to make profits to justify keeping the business open. And he can't do things that conflicts with that initiative, that narrative, that value. So if an employee comes in and he's a net negative, it's not a charity. Government, most of these businesses are not non-profits. Like, you can't just give people a wage and be like, oh, here, you can live good on $65 an hour. And even $15 an hour is still not a livable wage. The whole point of minimum wage, if I were to take the argument at face value, is so that young workers can get their foot wet and get paid some reasonable amount of wages. But to artificially increase this based on what? People who have no economic knowledge at all. It's one thing if you got an association of businesses together and you start deciding, hey, what will be on average a good general wage that we could like put into law. That's one thing. But to arbitrarily like, oh, I feel like it should be $20 an hour. All you have to do is look at California and look what happened. A lot of the people whose labor wasn't worth the increase of the minimum wage, their jobs got eliminated because at the end of the day, being part of business is one of the most competitive, is more competitive than sports. And I'm a pretty competitive person. I used to play basketball. I was very competitive. Ask my brothers. But being in business is one of the most competitive endeavors you could ever get yourself into. And no one's going to come and bail you out. No one's going to come save you. If your business go bankrupt, that's all on you. And the government ain't sure as hell is not going to bail you out unless you got, some people lobbying for you. You got some people, former colleagues of yours that is now working in the government, Wall Street. You won't get a bailout. Most jobs come from small business owners. 60% I think small businesses are responsible for about 60% of jobs in our economy. Yet small businesses get the short end of the stick with minimum wage laws. And minimum wage, in a way, it helps the rich because it creates a floor. It creates something that small businesses can't really adapt to immediately without getting funding from the very same corporations. This is why a lot of corporations are able to buy out these startups and these small businesses, because it prevents competitors from rising in the market. So that's another negative about minimum wage. And I didn't mean for this to become economic talk, but I just think a lot of these things are been spoken about, and Vivek really did bring attention to, like, hey, look, IRS is more net negative. We should remove, cut down this government bureaucracy, and I think that's the talking point that I think Ron DeSantis kind of hitched his wagon on, because he wasn't. When he first initially opened his campaign, he wasn't talking about dismantling the Department of Education. Or actually, maybe he did. Not the IRS, not the FBI. So to me, that's a form of flattery. But I digress. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you believe that Ron DeSantis plagiarized Vivek because we were in plagiarism gate? Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you think Vivek this is just something that all conservatives were aware of, and it's just maybe Vivek just brought attention back to it as a possible policy position. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I really like to hear it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.